let's put some of this coaching to practice.
Wait, before we do that,
No, I'm just super curious. No, you guys went back and forth. Half of the time, words I couldn't comprehend.
What
Avi,
in there for? Like,
no,
Wait, okay, hold on, no, wait.
I just have a question. Can I not ask
Okay,
him a
then
question?
ask it, quick, go. Holy shit, ask.
Alright, let me ask. Holy shit. Okay, Avi. So, if I were to ask you, why were Jews throughout history for thousands of years?
Wait, no, don't care. That's a whole other.
I just want to know because he's providing you the feedback to your argument. How would he argue against this? Anyways, I got this guy that feels some type of Jewish dude, like fully Jewish, like fucking practices the Saturday. They don't use Wi-Fi. Yikes. You know. Yeah, not yikes. We respect them, guys. I'm looking for a Jewish manager. Please,
what is that called? Is it Sabbat?
Sabbath or something. Yeah, Sabbath, whatever. Yeah, that's it.
Where they don't turn on the lights on Saturdays because they're not supposed to do any work. Yeah, but anyway, go ahead.
Or they don't mix milk with tuna. I don't know. They got their special stuff going on.
Okay, go. What do you want? What about it?
Okay, we gotta watch the tone. Okay, and he did say that he prepared like a very long Google Doc that he would have liked to share with you. Because apparently, you know, your argument, you let Nick Fuentes get away with.
I'm good. I don't care. Tell him he can do a stream on it, okay?
Whoa, you don't care about clearing up the shit that you let Nick Fuentes slide with?
I don't trust other people's research. I've been doing this too long to do that. I'm just reading my own.
Wait, wait, 1 second. You would admit that you were undereducated about like the whole Middle East situation or like the Jews
compared
and all that
to
type
Nick,
of shit?
My knowledge of the Middle East is a million times better. I didn't have good answers for him, but I'd rather like read on my own, and then once I've read enough on my own and I feel confident, then I can incorporate other people's research. But I don't like to use other people's research as my starting place. I'd rather use like a dictionary or Wikipedia or like just like reading shit. I'd rather start with my own foundation and then incorporate other people's research later on when I can identify what's good or not.
Okay, sure, that's fair, but right now what you just said was the highest degree of copium of all time. You literally said that compared to Nick, my knowledge is way greater, but I didn't have good answers.
I said on the Middle East. Yeah, of course it was. He knows if you're
talking. Yeah, but why were answers dog shit?
What do you mean? What do you mean? Why is the answer? Do you understand that I could like beat you in a flat Earth debate, right? It doesn't mean that I know more about physics than you.
Actually, I've spoken to Jonathan enough about flat Earth that I actually think I'd probably destroy you on it. But I get what you're trying to say. But no, if you're claiming that you knew what the talking about, why were you doing bad against him?
Because it's hard. Because it's easier to assert a falsehood than it is to know all the facts to counter said falsehood, right? So, for instance, it's easy for him to say, like the clean. So here's something he brings up. He brings up like that clean break memo, right? And he's saying, look, this is evidence that Israel, you know, just wants to get rid of Syria and Iraq and Iran or whatever. And then like one counterexample I bring up is that like, oh, well, these guys were born in the United States, so I don't even know if they count as like fully Jewish people. A really good counter Nick could have brought up to that is they were born in the US, but they were born before Israel was even created. He didn't even know these people though. He's just memorized talking points, right? Like there are arguments that he gave that I didn't have good counter arguments for, but I still stumbled onto good counter arguments that he couldn't answer, so I moved on. But he could have had better counter arguments to my counter arguments. He just doesn't know anything about what he's talking about, right? The fact that he asking me like if there are bases in Israel because he genuinely didn't know the answer, or asking why Israel might like or not like a certain country, or asking if there's anything we get from them. There are good answers to these things. I just didn't know it all at the time. But I spent most of my research on like the Holocaust because I thought that's what we were going to tread over a lot is Holocaust denialism, not why are we friends with Israel in the Middle East.
Okay, if you were, and I assume you're able to do this, if you're able to give me his take on Israel and Jews, what would it be? Like, what do you think his stance is about Israel and about Jewish people in general in the United States?
Jewish people in the United States, like what do they
or
do,
Jews.
Or what do you mean?
Jews.
Like,
yeah, Jews. Like when he speaks about Jews in the United States, what's his stance on them?
My guess is going to be that his stance on Jewish people in the United States is that Jewish people, through a lot of clever shenaniganery, basically control all the major institutions in the United States and are able to leverage that in order to use the United States to benefit the nation of Israel. There might be Jewish people in the United States, but they're only here because of the benefit of their own home country that their true allegiance is with, and they'll utilize the connections and the resources that they've gathered in the United States to serve the ends of Israel, even if it's to the detriment of U.S. citizens, especially white people, or the United States as a whole. All of our foreign policy in the Middle East is going to be oriented around whatever Israel wants, and that's evidenced by our belligerence against like Shia states. It's evidenced by our, like telling like Saudi Arabia should chill out because Israel doesn't like them. It's evidenced by our support of Israel against the Palestinians, even though we might historically come down on people like that. And then the support that Israel enjoys in the United States is due to their controlling of things like the media. The broad support they enjoy from old people is because Jewish people are largely in control of financial institutions that control money that goes to the media and to the politicians. So like if you look at the top donors from the RNC and the DNC, all of them are Jewish, and the reason why is so that they continue to control people to maintain allegiance to Israel, and they are at the head of Hollywood so they can make movies about World War II and the Holocaust to maintain our allegiance to Israel. I think this is broadly speaking like his argument, right? This is
Perfect.
like the JQ.
Perfect, but everything you just said is not anti-Semitic though.
Well,
why is he labeled as an anti-Semite?
The anti-Semitism comes in is because typically when you do a little bit of research, all of these points start to fall apart, and the only way you can hold on to them is if you start from the position of Jewish people are evil. But if you start from a genuine position like, oh, let's research, like why are things the way they are, why are people the way they are, why do people do the things they do, well, what are these relationships that exist, you're not going to end up in JQ territory. You typically only get there if you start from a position of fuck Jewish people.
So you think the basis of what makes him anti-Semitic is he's the fuck Jewish people crowd?
Yeah,
that's what he
I think
makes.
the easiest example of this, and having an enemy, I guess, helps orient your movement. It's really easy if you've got somebody to hate on. A really good evidence of this is he lays out three distinct things that a Holocaust revisionist, I think he accidentally says denier, but he changes that to revisionist. Three things that a Holocaust revisionist believes. One is that there were gas chambers, here's the three big claims about the Holocaust. One is that there are gas chambers. Two is that there was a mass order to kill all the Jews. And three is that 6 million people died. He goes through each of these three claims very quickly, and he says he doesn't believe in any of those things. He doesn't believe 6 million Jews died. He doesn't believe there was a coordinated effort to kill them. And he doesn't believe the gas chambers existed. But then when asked, oh, well, just curious, how many Jewish people do you think died? His immediate response is, oh, I don't know. I need to do more research.
And here's...
Because they'll misquote you. They said that you're a denier. I don't know if you're a denier.
Right. I'm more like a revisionist. But what they say about a denier, it's three central claims. 6 million died. It was a systematic extermination. They used gas chambers. Those are the three central claims.
Yes.
I don't believe there were gas chambers. I don't believe it was 6 million. I also don't believe that there was ever an order given out that said, okay, we're going to kill them all. I think.
What do you think the real number is then, in your opinion?
I don't know. I don't know I haven't done enough research on it. Because here's really the main thing. What you have to consider is it's not the job of anybody to, in my opinion, like present like a totally alternative narrative about the Holocaust. I mean, I could go into like things I've read, but it's context denial. And here's why. We live in this country where if you don't believe these like super specific historical claims about one thing, they have a fucking word for it. You're a Holocaust denier. There is no other event in history that has that treatment. If I have an alternative hypothesis of like the Suvorov hypothesis we talked about on Friday, no one says I'm a Hitler betrayed Stalin denier. If I say the American Revolution wasn't a real revolution, which is Mencius Moldbug's thesis, no one says I'm an American Revolution denier. There's even other genocides.
Okay.
Nobody, like Yazidi genocide has been going on with ISIS. Nobody says there's a Yazidi. So the point, and also, there's also no other event where there's museums dedicated to it everywhere. This is something that allegedly happened in Poland 80 years ago, and yet there's museums, very expensive, everywhere. In many states, it's mandated that that's in the curriculum. There's no other thing like this. And then a guy like me goes out and says, this is weird. And people go, what? What are you talking about? What do you mean? And it's like nobody needs to even come up with something to say this is peculiar, this is weird. And the last thing I'll say,
your issue is with the questioning of it is like if you question it, it's a problem. Versus if you question anything else, it's not a problem.
Yeah, but it's not just the questioning of it. It's that the questioning never comes in good faith. It's not a question of like, well, did that many Jews die or what actually happened? It's this presupposition that Nazi Germany and a lot of other countries started with, that it must be fake because it's a propaganda point for Jews to maintain power over the world. And you take this so far that not only do you deny the fact, first of all, you keep saying like, this is the only thing we do this with. Yeah, it was the biggest mass targeted extermination in human history. Number one. And number two, the idea that you're saying the Soviets, who were ideologically opposed to the United States, so much so that we fought in every country around the world, the Soviets, that they were in on the lie? for the Jewish people, I guess.
Let me respond to that.
And then the fact that this is the most studied war in world history, World War II.
Why is that?
So many different people, so many archives, so many records from so many different countries that were affected. And somehow every single person has come together in this lie, but you, through your internet sleuthing, have figured it all out?
Why would you say that you don't believe like the major historical accounting that 99% of the world gives, but then immediately say, I haven't done any research on the topic? Like, that's just such a weird position to take, how you couldn't even have like a guesstimate there. The reality is he probably hasn't done much research on it at all. And that's just the position he has because he starts from a point of anti-Semitism, not an inquisitive scholar who's just stumbled upon these answers of history.
But do you genuinely believe that somebody could ask the questions that he's asking, minus the whole, I hate Jews and I'm going to be biased, and show that bias through saying that the Holocaust was either exaggerated or didn't happen? But when pressed on, why I believe that, I'd say, I don't know, I didn't do research, right? If somebody basically asks what he's asking, but they're totally coming at it from a good faith perspective, don't you think that they'd still be lumped in the anti-Semitic fucking crew? There's no good. Basically, what I'm trying to say is
you're asking me a fundamentally. Hold on. You're asking me a fundamentally different question. You're saying some guy goes into a bar and he says, F black people, and then he shoots and kills all of them. And then you're saying like, okay, but if he would have gone to the bar and just said F black people would call him like a murderer anyway. People would say he hates black people, wants to kill him, even if he didn't kill him.
But he's not walking. Hold up. This is not a fair fucking analogy. Because
wait, no. Wait. Hold on. I'm just saying I take umbrage with the idea of you comparing Nick to a scholar asking questions. He's not. He's got a whole political ideology that's oriented around removing Jewish people from the United States. That's not just a guy asking questions. He's got policy prescriptions for this stuff.
No, or you could say he has a whole fucking political movement that's fucking centered around uplifting fucking white people, without necessarily giving special fucking focus towards Jews or black people or any of those people. Number one. Number two.
Wait. On number one, that's not true. He specifically said he wants to remove the power that Jewish people have in this country and take their businesses and their assets. I asked him this specifically, and he says he wants them to answer to Christians.
So you wouldn't label yourself an anti-Semite?
No.
Wait, what would you do to Jews in the United States, though?
I would not have them in positions of power.
So what does that mean? Would you take their businesses from them, seize their assets, remove them from Hollywood?
Have them answer to Christians.
What does that mean?
Hold on, Destiny.
There's a reason why you won't answer the question.
Hold on, Destiny.
Just answer
Can I ask Destiny something?
What do you think that means?
Okay, so he believes that, what's the word for that shit, right? Like when the country is ruled by, it's like Sharia law, but Christian edition. That's basically what he wants, right?
I don't know. Do you ever want to be in a position, just curious, where you have to answer to Christians? What does that sound like to you? Does that sound like you're going to do a Q&A? Like, what do you mean?
No. And it seems like he would implement it by, I'd say if I'm genuinely thinking about this deep, he'd probably be implemented by force. If you don't answer to him, you're probably going to go to jail. But I'm not thinking here that the dude is going to exterminate Jews like in H-Man 2.0, right? So that's why I had to push back against that analogy, because it makes it sound crazy. It makes him sound like the dude that's coming in there and shooting the black people.
Wait.
Right?
He is crazy, right? He is a full-on like anti-Semitic. Essentially, I'm pretty sure he's basically a Nazi in terms of like all of his beliefs. Jewish people control the world.
Easy with the term.
Wait. Hold on. No. Don't. Especially around me.
Really?
Yeah, don't virtue signal around me. His recent position.
No, you're the dude who virtue signaled with Mr. Gill. This is the entire fucking reason why you guys weren't friends, because you didn't want to call the dude a Nazi because it takes away from your argument.
I didn't want to call the guy. I didn't want to call him a Nazi because back then he didn't seem to be having the same type of rhetoric that he has now. What he has right now is he says he wants to remove Jewish people from power in the country. He doesn't even believe the Holocaust happened, and he thinks Jewish people seem to be responsible for a majority of the problems in the Western world. That, in my opinion, I think that hits all the central markers of a Nazi. If he was a Nazi prior to this, he was definitely more covert or crypto about it. But he is very much like open about this now.
Which is something, by the way, you were told on numerous occasions about how covert he was, and you're still like, I'm not gonna go with it. He's not a Nazi. But
no. So, because hold on. Yeah, because I'm going to take people where they are. I'm not going to sit there and attack people for what they were. Otherwise, I would probably call you out on your anti-Semitism and your homophobia and your Sharia law and Islamic extremism way more.
Okay. First of all, you wouldn't do that because I don't have the base that Nick Fuentes has and the influence that he has. Number one. Number two, you generally know that I am not anti-Semitic.
I don't know about that.
Really?
I'm not 100%.
Come on. Okay, now you're trying to make me
Hold
look crazy
on.
because you are willing to extend
Do you
all the
think?
good faith in
Wait,
the world to
wait.
fucking Nick.
Do you think 6 million is an accurate number?
I don't give a shit. I'll be very honest with you. If you say 12 million, no.
Do you think gas chambers are real? Do you think there were gas chambers?
Listen, never been in one, so I can't confirm or deny.
Okay. Do you think Jewish people kind of control the United States? Do you think the USS Liberty was a false flag instigated by Jewish people?
Since 1971, the United States has provided Israel with the most financial aid out of any country on planet Earth, right? There is a extreme bias within the United States, within their government, within their social upper class when it comes to fucking Jews and Israel, right? A lot of these fucking businessmen, okay, quote unquote, right? Shout out to the small hat people. A lot of these fucking people that are American citizens, born and raised in America, fully American, they love America, still simp and bent over backwards for Israel. Hell, even fucking Ben Midget Man Shapiro calls that shit up from time to time, and he's the biggest fucking simp for Israel. Sometimes he says, you know what, maybe we could focus on the United States just a little bit, because he sees the insane bias that a lot of these politicians and a lot of these fucking people in power
literally
have
nothing you're saying. Like, what do you mean? Like, oh,
Yes,
we're
it does
focused on
make sense.
Israel too much
Yes,
to
it makes
focus on America. Domestic policy and foreign policy both exist at the same time. You got to do them both. Like, that doesn't make any
Why?
sense. That's like
Okay,
saying, like, I
okay.
can't focus on chapter 2 of the Bible because I'm too busy focusing on chapter 1 or the first book.
Okay,
Or like,
but
what, like,
why? Okay, no. First of all, you have to admit that there is a certain degree or a certain difference in the amount of focus that Israel gets versus all other countries. Now, you could argue that it's based in money, right? A lot of these politicians could be getting paid by Israel to support them, right? Or it could be based on influence in the region that's unstable as and they want to have an ally that's super powerful.
okay, I don't want to go through all this because I was actually in a mood to read. Okay, what do you want to? What is the point of view? What are you talking about?
All I'm gonna say is this.
Yeah.
You claim to have better points. You claim to have more knowledge. Yeah, you claim to struggle because the man took the argument 1,000 different places. Now, if I were talking to some dickhead that started online debates yesterday, I'd be like, you know what, valid point. You wouldn't be able to navigate those waters. But when I'm talking to the one and only Stephen Kenneth Bonnell II, aka Destiny, I'd say that's a pretty excuse. And you know what? Maybe when you're engaging with the biggest Nazi that's on the internet,
I can't tell.
you should prepare
This
a
is
bit
like
more.
my. It's
Maybe
like
that's
my.
what
It's like my number one complaint, and I could just be wrong. You might be like a legitimately like a 95 IQ dude. There are so many things that you can. There are so many tactics that you can employ that Nick would do over and over and over again. I just got into an argument with a friend about this 2 days ago, and I said it's frustrating because there are certain things that people do that I know makes them look better, but the only reason they do it is because they're weak on the point, and I know that for a fact. And she was telling me, no, I think people can see through when it's dumb. But then I talk to people like you, and I legitimately do think that it does work. For instance, every single time in that conversation, whenever Nick points out, oh, look at how Destiny's laughing, it's because he doesn't have anything good to say to me. If you go back in that debate and you look, every single time he points that out before giving an answer, it's because he knows he's weak on that topic and he's trying to divert to another subject. That's the first thing. The second thing is, every single time, and you can go and watch me do debates, if somebody asks me a direct question and I have the answer, I'm always going to give the answer because it makes me look good. It makes me look strong, and I'm happy to demonstrate knowledge on a topic. When I'm pushing him for direct answers on things, and every time he does it, he has to loop around. We did it on a Gulf War topic like 15 times, and I had to ask him, and then I had to ask Myron, and then I asked him, and then I asked Myron, make him answer this question over and over again, and he just pontificates and proselytizes and goes on and rambles, and people like you, I think people like
just
you
like
listen
you're
to
doing
it.
right now, by the way, rambling, just like you're doing
No,
right
I'm not
now.
rambling. I started the answer with, it's frustrating that bad tactics work on normal people, and then I'm giving you an example of what that bad tactic, or no, then I'm describing what the bad tactic is, and now I'm giving you 2 examples of what the bad tactic is. Every single part of this answer is directly answering the question. If you disagree with something I've said so far, people would cut me off. But
no, the fact that you're trying to paint it as though I'm the one who's pushing the idea that you f***ed up is funny to me, because you admitted in the beginning, if you recall, you admitted I f***ed up articulating my points. I know I'm paraphrasing, but that's what you said. I said, yo, Nick was way more knowledgeable. You said no the fuck.
No. You're conflating knowledgeable with wins a debate. Just because you win the debate doesn't necessarily mean you're more knowledledgeable. There are times when these 2 points coincide.
So you do admit that he won against you in the debate?
Yeah, I personally, I feel like it came off 50-50, but against a conspiracy theorist, it's not good to come off 50. But bro, you're literally retarded. It's literally a 4v1 with Zerka screaming me down every single time I'm trying to hold Nick to a point. What do you mean, who gives a... Can you... I want you to go...
Give a fuck about Zerka.
You're
Nobody
wrong. No, you're wrong. Zerka helped to derail the argument every single time I had Nick on a point. What are you talking about? There were like 2 or 3 different times where I had Nick like on the wall on a thing, and Zerka comes in with some retarded shit, and I'm even telling him to shut the up. I've got to tell Sneeko to shut the up. What do you mean there's no point? And Myron is auto-sided. Sure. Even though Myron did his best to moderate, I'll give him that. But like, what do you mean?
Sure, okay, I'm not saying that the shit wasn't stacked against you, right? Like, I'm not saying that a lot of the people there weren't all pro Nick, but at the same time, like I said, when you're dealing with somebody such as yourself, these are things you've dealt with a billion times already. For you to fall to like the most basic debates strats that he was pulling, and then to claim, oh, but I was still more knowledgeable, and if you guys can't see through the intricate details,
it's not that intricate. They're
pretty
smart. Yeah, I think you just think like a winner always means that like they're the more knowledgeable one, or you don't know how to analyze. Like I've lost debates. I lost a debate to Ryan Dawson. That wasn't because of debate tactics. That because he was legitimately more knowledgeable on the topic. If you go and you watch my debate with Ryan Dawson, Ryan's not going like, oh, look at Dawson, he's laughing when he does this, and actually in 1941, blah blah blah. When he's asked a question, it's boom 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 boom. It's just a bunch of information that he has. When Nick is answering a question, it's, well, you see, what you gotta understand is there was a memo, and these guys that were Jewish, well, when they wrote this thing, he's not even like talking about the subject, and then like, halfway through his answer he starts rambling about like 3 or 4 other things that aren't even related. Like I understand for somebody like you, I understand for somebody.
Press him on that shit?
No, I can't press anything. That was the whole point of the debate. I kept saying multiple times. I kept saying to Myron, hey, stop him from rambling, because I can't, because if I cut him off, he's gonna say, oh look, Destiny's cutting me off. I can't do it, because if I cut him off, then Zerka and Sneeko are gonna attack me, and then Nick is gonna keep rambling, and then Myron's gonna tell me to stop cutting him off, and I can't tell Nick to just answer a simple question. But there were points in that debate where even Myron was reiterating a question. But for people like you hear that and you think, wow, Nick is really strong and really knowledgeable on this thing. Bro, Nick tried to get me on a Nick literally tried to get me on a geography question by asking me where Azerbaijan was, bro. Do you really think this is a guy with extensive knowledge of the fucking Middle East?
Okay,
there were points in that debate, and I could be wrong, but it sounded like, I have to go back and listen, it sounded like there were points in that debate where he thought that Iraq bordered Israel, okay? Like, I don't know what this guy, the extent of his knowledge is for Middle Eastern shit, but it's nowhere near on the level.
And you thought that Jesus was a prophet in Judaism.
Because I mixed it up with a Muslim shit, but I literally, if you go and you listen to me talk, first of all, obviously I know that Jews killed Jesus. This is when I have 3 or 4 people screaming at me at once. I'm not getting everything out as crystal clear as possible. Like, you're actually so retarded that you're like, well, Dusty, we go through every single fucking statement and blah blah blah. Like, do you hold on? I'm curious. Wait, no, I'm curious. Do you legitimately think that I think that Jesus was a prophet in Judaism?
I'm just saying, based on the way you fucking handled yourself in that argument. I'm skeptical. Okay. Sure, I could. Wait. If you see somebody ramble,
if you see somebody ramble, it's a good to you. That's strong. Yeah.
Not necessarily. No, not really.
No, it is. That's what you think. But I understand. I know how the normie brain works. I understand it.
No. I get it. Listen, you're the superior.
No, I get it. I understand it. I get it. I understand.
But
ramble equals good. Yeah.
Listen, I know I've hit a fucking sore spot right now, or a soft spot, whatever the fucking saying is. I know you feel some type of way about me.
What are you talking about?
It makes you feel. No, hold on. Let me talk to you right now for a second. If I were to get it correct, your position is I lost the debate to Nick because the panel was against me, the host was against me, and dude was allowed to ramble and go over on like 1,000 different tangents, and I couldn't respond to all of them, and he fucking just muddied the waters, so we couldn't have an honest fucking debate. And anything he asked me, I answered 100%, and anything I asked him, he fucking derailed into a whole
that's more extreme than what I said, but go ahead if you.
No, that's what you said. That's not more extreme.
No, you're just wrong.
You just don't want to sound like a bitch, because everything that you just did was exactly what I said. And I'm pretty sure I'm being very fucking fair to you.
Why would I do any research at all if I think I had the perfect answer for every question?
Oh, so you're telling me you didn't? You just said it. You just said if I know what the talking about, I'm always going to answer it. And what I said is, for every question that he had that you knew, you answered him straightforward.
But there is more knowledge that I could have had. There's more stuff I could have known about the first Gulf War.
Which you didn't. Again, sure. And that's what I'm also calling you out on, the fact that you weren't prepared enough, and that's why you lost to the dude on top of all the other factors that you stated. But it's so hard for the great Destiny to claim that he got outschooled by the Nazi. That's it. And it's so funny.
I don't think you don't even have like a coherent like train of thought through all of this. I think that. So? I understand it. Listen, yes, whatever you say, yes, okay. I think in you, this is just like a exercise in egoism for you. So whatever you want me to say,
the same guy that's literally trying to get away with a 50-50. You couldn't. You said yes, I lost. And you immediately
listen.
Said it's
the
50-50.
fact that you just said that, you're not listening to anything I'm saying. I'm trying to get away with a 50-50. I'm not. I don't want to go 50-50. I don't want to even go 70-30 with a conspiracy theorist. If you drop any big points to a conspiracy theorist, it doesn't look good. So no, I'm not trying to get away with that. What are you talking about?
Every single, because at the end of the day, you could shit on your fucking audience that you say I share an IQ with, like all the fucking 95 IQ normies, right? But every single motherfucker, or at least the vast majority of them, looked at that debate, and you as a streamer need to realize this. You're also arguing for the audience. You're trying to get them on your side. You said this to me a while ago. The reason I go on Fresh and Fit is because I'm trying to show them what's right. I'm trying to show them my point of view, hopefully for them to come to my side of things. So you're playing to the audience as well. And if you're not taking into consideration the way that they look at shit, the way that they interpret certain fucking debate tactics, then that's a fucking L on you. Now all of this victimization, but fucking is that?
Yeah, you're just okay.
No. You're not. Okay, you're getting mad.
No, I'm not getting mad. No, you just.
So can I just finish? I was making a point.
No, you can't. No, because I'm not gonna let you like. You keep saying like.
What am I doing?
You keep pretending that I'm like victimizing myself. I'm not. These are the things that happened during the debate. There are some things that play to my strengths. There are some things that play to my weaknesses. It's important for me to recognize all of these things to make improvements going forward. If I'm saying that, like, for instance, having Zerka there was a big detriment to me, which I think it was, then in the next debate, I won't have him there. This isn't about, like, victimizing myself. Unlike you, I'm not, like, doing this for ego or finding ways to...
No excuses then?
It's not.
Just saying it's valid
what do you
reasons.
mean? It's not an excuse. It's just an analysis of what happened. Can you really not see that?
Sure, okay, you could call it an analysis, but at the same time, the way that you were presenting it, if you just sat here and said, you know what, this dude got it over me in this fucking debate, but I'd say Zerka being there played into it, Sneeko being there, Myron hosting it, all of these played into it, but at the same time, my knowledge was lacking. You've admitted these things, but you just don't want to put them in this package because
I've
of
literally done exactly that. No, I've literally done exactly that. You're the one that's here projecting because people will ask me like all these questions, like, oh, well, I heard you say that. Like, I think I've almost said what you said verbatim. Like, what do you mean? Like, initially, I didn't even want Zerka there, but eventually he came and I was like, oh, and now I see in the past that was probably a mistake. Yeah, I only had a day and a half to research. I said I probably would have wanted more time to research. It wasn't good, right? Next time I'll have more time, or I've got more time before my next one. There are certain questions that I needed better answers to. I've already said all of these things, but like in your mind, since you live your life as egotistical as possible, you're projecting that onto me. Like, I wouldn't have survived this long if I went through every single debate thinking like, oh, I didn't do anything wrong at all. I'm all victimization. I'm such a victim, blah, blah. No, I just have to be aware of the conditions. There are some things that play to my strengths, some things that play to my weaknesses, and I have to control the best as I can. What do you mean?
Stop. You're making me look like a dickhead, and this is part of you trying to play to the audience.
Because you are a dickhead. No, you're being retarded. Because you're this whole thing is the lens of like your like ego. Like when I say something like, oh yeah, like
this guy being there. Elaborate on it.
Yeah, when you say things like, oh, you're just making excuses about Nick rambling. No, rambling or gish galloping is a legitimately powerful debate strategy that I've worked really intentionally hard to in the past overcome. It's very difficult to do so. It's good to understand when somebody does that so that you can understand how to deal with their questions in the future. But that's like, is that self-victimization to you? Like, what do you mean?
Okay, no. Right now, you're admitting that you had a shortcome to fucking
no. Hold on.
Sure.
No. It's not
what
right now. You haven't gotten me to admit anything that I haven't already said. You've said exactly 0 new things here that I haven't already said myself.
Okay, you need to understand the way you package shit matters. Right?
No, it's hold on. No. What you want? No. Stop. When you say the way you package it matters, what you want is for me to like come on stream and cry that like your best friend Nick. Yeah, because everything you said, I've already said. Why do I need to package this in a different way? I acknowledge the things that were bad. I do whatever I can to counter them next time, and then you move forward to the next conversation.
You sat here, and the first thing, and this is what I heard, right? So again, you can't accuse me of projecting or ego, whatever the. You said, listen. The dude was jumping left, right, and center. He wasn't tackling any of my points, but Zerka being there and derailing my arguments ruined it. You started off by saying you knew more about the Middle East than Nick, which sure, it's your opinion. Sadly, you couldn't prove it because you couldn't get over his debate tactics.
Okay,
By the way,
so you're really
the issue
upset
here-
about
no,
the
no,
statement
I'll tell
of
you what the
knowledge
issue-
because you think that listening to somebody ramble off talking points is knowledgeable. Listen,
If you
on
said-
this
if you
particular
honestly
topic,
said
on
my
this
knowledge
particular
lacked
topic,
in the Middle
on
East,
this,
I would be
on-
like, okay.
Here, I'll give you this. Anybody that quizzes me on where a country is in the Middle East automatically knows less than me because I think that's going to be a killer question. Okay, number one. Number two, you think
You're
that
being bad faith about that.
I'm not being bad faith. It was a stupid question from him because he thought I wouldn't know where Azerbaijan was, right?
So the entire
reality
arguments that he made, you keep focusing on that one
I'm
fucking
not
question.
saying the entire
part.
arguments that he made. I don't think you understand the difference between somebody comprehending something versus somebody having talking points. Nick Fuentes is a man of talking points. That's it. He doesn't have deep understanding. That's why he's scared of me re-challenging him. And I guess he's trying to get me kicked from the next debate. That's why he made fun of me prior to the last show when he thought I was like reading shit about our future debate, which I wasn't, right? It's why he said specifically before the after show that went on last time, he was like, I don't want to redo any of what we talked about before. Let's just do like dating stuff. Like none of these things point to a man that is confident or strong in his knowledge about a particular topic. And
Okay, but no, you already asked him to a rematch debate earlier, and he said no.
who? Or wait, about what?
On the couch at Fresh and Fit.
Oh yeah.
Fit,
Don't you think that's kind of weird? Shouldn't he want to like rehash his points over and over again if he's correct about things? All of these things, by the way, are the exact same pattern that happened when we debated 5 years ago. I had a first debate where, and you can go back and watch those videos, I thought Nick was genuinely a really smart person. He seemed to have a really big depth of knowledge about the history of the United States and all sorts of topics related to immigration. But when I did an outline and I prepared hardcore and I came back and debated it a second time, I found out that he didn't know anything about the talking stuff. It was just talking points. He didn't have any of the depth of knowledge. He just memorized lines. That was it. And it's the same thing now today with his JQ shit.
Stop. Everything that you just said, right, points towards the guy has nothing of substance to say. And I lost to a dude with nothing of substance to say, a bunch of prepared talking points, but a really f***ing good debater. And you want me to sit here and be like, okay, if like some other debate dude said this, the problem is I'm thinking of you more highly than the other niggas, and that's why I'm fucking talking to you the way that I am, because you're sitting here trying to convince me the dude had not zero knowledge, but the dude had way more less knowledge than you. The dude is just filled with talking points, no fucking substance, no depth, but you lost to him because the fucking host and the fucking people there were against you, and he was really fucking good at debating and doing the gish gallop bullshit and fucking deflecting and diverting from the points that you made. But
nothing
you want
you
me
said,
to sit here and
literally,
accept
like
that
literally
you can't handle that
nothing.
shit?
I'm not saying I can't handle it. There's probably some limit to things that you can't handle. I don't know if 4 people screaming at me on a show is past those limits. It might be, but you're acting like
Don't go jerk as a person. The guy barely said anything that made sense.
You're just wrong. Like you don't even. I don't know why I'm arguing this. I don't think you
I watched
understand
this
how any of
shit.
this
What the f*** are you saying? What do you mean?
Zerka literally took me off one of like my most important drillings of Nick. There was like one point that I was drilling, and Zerka literally tore me off of him.
And you couldn't go back to it after.
No, I can't. After Zerka's already interrupted and asked this dumb question, and I've already drilled down on this line and asked Byron to do it. Yeah, I literally went back and I rewatched this happen. But again, I think for you, the way that you view this is just fundamentally different than me. But
the way that I view it is the exact same way as the vast majority of the people that watch that shit. Other than you need to get out of your community, because if you were to watch,
bro, you have no.
I'm not talking about.
You're like a
You
20.
are
You're like
you
you're a
actually serious? Are you
21-year-old
actually
like Muslim fundamentalist. Yeah, I don't have.
Sure,
any,
and you lost to 18-year-old Nick.
There's
fucking 5 years ago. Come
nothing I can learn from you on this topic, and the way that you've spoken about it, like, clearly demonstrates that for you, this is an exercise in egoism. It has nothing to do with like for you saying like, oh, it sounds like you're just making a massive hope when you bring this up. No, it's not a hope. I'm just pointing out conditions of the debate.
No. I backed up. When I said cope, I backed it up with why I think it's cope. I didn't just throw out that statement and let it sit there. Number one. Number two, you're the dude that sat across the motherfucker, lost to him, which you admit, right?
I said I lost the optics, but go ahead.
Sure, you lost the optics, which, by the way, to you is what matters the most in this instance.
Of course it is. Yes.
Yeah. So if you lost the most important thing, you just lost. I don't know why you have to get into the fucking
because you're getting
of it.
ass mad because you're so ass pain that you're sliding down your fucking chair, absorbing it into your gaping rectum. When I say something like, "Yeah, I don't think Fuentes is very knowledgeable," and you're like, "Well, why would you possibly?"
Because I wanted you to prove it. No, because I wanted you to prove it, and you couldn't prove it. And your excuses.
I proved it like 3 different times. He wouldn't answer fundamental questions about the Gulf War. He didn't seem to know the fact that the guys that wrote that clear break memo, where they were even fucking born, or what year it was, or if that even fucking matters. He didn't know like incredibly basic facts about like Israel and the relation between Israel and the United States. Right? Every single question.
Let me see if you're good faith. How many of his questions were you not able to answer? and you may have not necessarily.
I don't remember every single question. I don't remember
because if we're calculating. No, if we're calculating it, no, I didn't say that. But if we're calculating it by how many questions was he not able to answer? How many questions were you not able to answer when he posed them to you?
It's not.
I can fucking come back to it that way because at the end of the day,
it wasn't a question of like how many questions are you able to answer. Again, with the world's best flat earther, there's probably a lot of questions I couldn't answer. When you're debating a conspiracy theorist, the only way to win is to do so resolutely with like 100% confidence.
If it's you're using the Ryan Dawson argument, no, stop. You're using the Ryan Dawson argument.
Give me the last 30 seconds. There's nothing valuable out of this conversation. Go ahead.
Okay. You're using the Ryan Dawson argument, which is I don't want to debate with Ryan Dawson again because the guy is a mega conspiracy theorist that I lost to fucking 8 years ago.
You're proving why.
Can I finish? Will you ever let me have an uninterrupted statement for once? Right? You said I can't debate with this dude because he knows so much like what's the word? Like outlier conspiracy theories that validate another conspiracy theory with another conspiracy theory, and I won't be able to keep up unless I know all of conspiracy theories. Number one. And you said that they range in topics. What you are discussing with Nick was one single topic: the Middle East and Jews. That's what you were talking about. You weren't talking about 1,000 different topics.
Wait, hold on. We were talking about the JQ. What do you mean?
So you couldn't. Okay, so you're telling me you couldn't keep up with him in the JQ when you knew this dude is like the biggest JQer?
One of the biggest things about the JQ is the Holocaust. That's what I spent most of my time rereading about. It wasn't
were you ever given confirmation that it was going to be only a Holocaust conversation?
No, it was just broadly speaking JQ, but those were the big points that I heard him bring up recently. I didn't know it was going to be centered mainly around contemporary foreign policy in the Middle East. If it was, I would have brushed it up on all of that. I would have brushed it up on 91 to today about what had gone on in the Middle East.
Set up a debate.
I'm trying to, but Nick is wanting to dodge it. I wonder why, Q. Must be because he's so intelligent.
Sure, all I'm going to say is another debate has to happen because right now, this one was ass. I'm not going to lie. This one was ass. Another debate has to happen, number one. Number two, why you have to be so mad? It's just a conversation. We're having a conversation.
This is my normal talking voice. I think you're in your feelings. This is how I normally talk.
Listen. I know it hit you in a sore spot because
every single time you come on and you say something retarded, then afterwards you're like, oh, I think I got you in a sore spot. Like you'll come on here and then say like, Destiny, I think 1 + 1 = 3, and then we'll scream at you like, I think I got a spot for you. Like,
okay, by the way, we agreed on everything because you did admit to your faults.
I didn't admit to anything. Nothing I said in this conversation was new. I've already made all these things.
It's not new, but it's still an admission. It's still an admission to me because you're telling me this shit for the first time.
Okay, Avi, what's up? What do you want?
Oh, wait, Avi, 1 second. But holy shit, stop policing like the little words that I'm using. You did admit.
I'm policing it because you're acting like you've pulled some deep concession out of me that I hadn't said before. But that's your misinterpretation of things because this is all just like egotistical, like circle jerkery for you or masturbation or whatever.
You'd be happy because what I actually want is to go over the debate and the JQ and the debate.
Oh, if you're gonna let Avi go over it, let my the dog dude go over it.
No, I don't want to let Avi go over it either. I don't care. Avi, did you have anything?
Avi's Jewish. He's Jewish. Let him talk.
I don't care if he's Jewish. He's not even a real doctor. Remember, he's a whatever. I'm just kidding.
Or at least, well, not go over it. Just talk about a few things and
go. Hit me up with a few points. Go.
All right. Okay. So the first thing I wanted to mention was the point about the weakened JQ. You might have noticed that in the debate. Yeah. So the response you seemed to give was that, okay, well, this is not the real JQ. And that's fine. It's fine to point that out. One thing I would also do is, because these people are allowed to weaken their theories. It's fine to like, okay, so it's not the JQ that's maybe standardly used.
Well, if you weaken your theory too much, though, it's like for instance, let's say somebody says, I'm a race realist, and I believe that there are statistically significant IQ differences between black people and white people, and we need to design a society around that. And let's say that when I push them on that, they say that like the statistically significant difference is 1 or 2 IQ points. At that point, we're like in a fun, So like, I think there's strong JQ. Weak JQ is just like normal human behavior. That's like saying like a guy that's from Mexico in the United States might be a little bit more preferential when it comes to foreign policy, like towards being nice to Mexico than like adversarial to Mexico. But that's not like you're not making,
No, but exactly. That's what I would have liked you to make. That's the point I would have liked you to have seen to make. It's a point to be like, okay, well, you can weaken your JQ if you want, but if by JQ all you mean is that there happen to be certain people who who are Jewish, who have certain preferences of national interest for Israel, then why isn't there a Norwegian question? Why isn't there an Indian question?
Well, so one, I said the first half of this, I said this almost verbatim towards the end of our debate. But two, the natural response afterwards is going to be there's a JQ and not an NQ, or, well, there is an NQ for some of these guys. There's not a Norwegian question or other things for these guys is because Jewish people are massive outliers in terms of wealth in the United States, wealth and influence, right? I don't think Norwegians have a lot of influence in the United States, right?
I mean, well, maybe not Norwegians, but I'm sure you could find certain individuals. And so, okay, fine. So they can say, okay, well, it's incidental.
I think I made up or I brought up a point because I saw there was some post on this before that theoretically you could make an argument that Irish people have like massive disproportionate control in the U.S. if you look at like history of presidents, politicians, and foreign policy. But I mean, like I would have to learn more about that alternate conspiracy.
And then, but the principled point here is just say, okay, well, say there were some whether there are or not, like just let's say it was the case that Irish people just happen to be have certain preferences in the same way that Jews just happen to have certain national preferences, and they did happen to stumble upon this wealth. Would you be going, oh, Irish question? So that's the type of thing to push them on is, when you weaken a theory like that, you're just hinging it on like the incidental circumstance, and it's not. And let's be honest, it's not really. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't like if he is going to weaken his JQ position a lot. Like I want to, I really want that to be clear in the eyes of everybody else, because it's not fair to say he's got a weak JQ position while he's a Holocaust denier, right?
Yeah.
Like
no. It's
Well, like I'm pretty sure he probably believes that the USS Liberty or whatever was intentionally attacked by Israel. He probably believes in all these things. Yeah.
Sure. But the point is that to point that out to the audience, saying, okay, yes, you are the person who doesn't believe in the Holocaust. You're the person who believes all these things. What you are presenting is the ultimate cucked version of the JQ, and you're presenting it because you want it to be more defensible. But just so you know, it's fine. You could weaken your theory, but there's a whole lot less differentiating Jews from almost any other race at this point, and to whatever degree there is some certain things differentiating it, let's not pretend.
Okay, hold on. I feel like I'm being gaslit. I don't know if you watched the whole debate or not, but I'm pretty sure I gave this point almost verbatim.
What goes on in the world can be explained through so many simple things. It can be advertiser pressure. It could be foreign relations with other countries. Like you could look at like reported history as it's recorded, and it generally makes sense. Okay. When you start getting to this idea of like the Jews control everything in the United States, but not everything, just some parts of the government, but also all of the media. Sometimes they can manufacture enough consent for some wars, but not all of them. And when we do go to wars, sometimes we target the targets the Jews want us to target, but not the right ones. And sometimes it takes us 2 wars to do. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. It's a smorgasbord of random fucking claims and random things. The reality is you can find any ethnic group in the United States that will make claims about any countries. If you follow enough of these claims, you could probably manufacture. I've seen pictures where people show how many Irish presidents or how many Irish people were in positions of power and wars that we went at. Like, you could do this with any group of people. The reality is this predictive framework does not give you an actual analysis of the world at all. That's why when Nick brings up the ADL said 5 people had to say banned, and that's why I'm banned, even though I got unbanned and 2 or 3 of the other people are unbanned too. But right, it just doesn't make any sense. It falls apart at the seams when you actually take a critical lens and you're not just rattling off like 5 or 10 random wars that, upon greater scrutiny, like Gaddafi in Libya, like why we didn't go into Iran, like why we didn't go into Syria, like why we went into Afghanistan, none of it actually holds up to scrutiny when you actually analyze the actual situation. So when we look at the documents even that Nick cites, you don't see that they were, as he reported, Iraq wasn't the first one listed on the clear break memo. It was fucking Syria that we didn't actually go in and put boots on the ground with, because we couldn't manufacture consent for that one, but we could for every other one. It's just the reason why, and even broader, the reason why people don't debate this is because there's nothing to debate. There are no strong claims ever, and that's always the issue when it comes to conspiracy theories. What is the strong claim? When I started out, I said the JQ, and apparently I'm the only one here that even knows the fuck the JQ is. The JQ is saying,
just no, Myron got it.
The JQ is saying that there is a group of people in the United States that have an allegiance to Israel, that are most likely Jewish Zionists, that are leveraging undue influence in the government to work in a way that is to the detriment of U.S. foreign and domestic policy. That's what the JQ is. At the end of our foreign policy debate, Nick backed this up to, well, the JQ is there are some people in the United States that are of Israeli descent and they might like Israel more than the United States, which is okay. I don't even know if that's controversial. That's the JQ. Probably like 80% of people would sign up for it. So that's my point.
At the end of before we got to the media section, I said this verbatim. I said, you're arguing for a weak version of the JQ that isn't even a real version. You're just saying essentially at the end of the day that some people in our country might like have preferential like to good treatment of like other countries that their ancestors are from. That's not like I think I've said this like
no, that you said the point. The point to press them on further is that, because here's the thing, the whole point of the JQ is that there's something unique about Jewish people that are a problem in a way that other races are not.
Well, but there is something unique about Jewish people that make them a problem that other races are not, right? You have to contend with that because the history of Jewish people is persecution since Roman times, right? So through the history and the geography of the entire fucking world.
No. The JQ is currently in the United States. So I'm saying, like, there's a problem with. Well, I took it to be presented as a problem to United States interests in the way that other races are not.
Oh,
right?
I feel like there's really good answers to your questions that make me look worse. Like, if I were to ask that question, like, well, is there something unique about Jewish people? I mean, the answer to that is obviously yes, right? Jewish people are persecuted throughout time and space for the history of the planet.
That's not, I'm not asking if there's something unique about Jewish people. What I'm saying is that the point of the JQ, as it was in the context it was presented, is that there's something that's unique about the JQ as it pertains to U.S. The sabotage of U.S. interests.
Well, there is to that as well, right? We have a fierce allegiance to Israel. They're probably one of our strongest military alliances in the world. They're in a sea of enemies and adversaries in the Middle East that we also are in perpetual conflict with. We maintain strong diplomatic ties with Israel, even though it stands in contrast to other diplomatic ties we have with other countries, especially OPEC. We provide, I think, more military assistance to them. Maybe that's changed with Ukraine, but prior to that, to then any other country in the world, there was very strong trade environment. Like,
none of that means it's to the detriment of the United States interest. It could be to the detriment of the United States interest. I mean, that's a whole different debate. Whether
I'm not saying it's necessarily detrimental, but I'm saying our relationship with Israel is unusually strong, and I don't think I can pretend that's not the case.
That's not the JQ. Yeah, but that's not the JQ. The JQ is that
JQing Destiny.
Yeah, the JQ is that the Jewish people present a sabotage threat to the United States in a unique way that other races do not. That's the key. And so one thing actually I think would be helpful is in the beginning of the debate, and there's a number of reasons for this, have him outline the theory that he wants to defend, and don't let him like ramble or go. I know it's hard to say, but like the first step should be like, okay, you want to defend the JQ, what is it? Write it out. Like you write out whatever he says.
Wait, didn't I ask him this at the very beginning of the debate? Didn't I ask him to define the JQ?
What did he? Well,
I thought I did this in the beginning. Somebody can tell me if I'm wrong. I thought he did, but then that's why at the end I think I pointed out that he's using a much weaker version.
Did he give you that weaker version in the beginning of the debate?
No, I think in the beginning I thought he gave me the strong version. That's why I got frustrated towards the end that he'd weakened it down.
I see. And that's fine. Okay, good. So then that's not a mistake. And then the other thing is, okay, so good. So yeah, define. But then you point out, so did you write that down then and say like, hey, you said this version?
Yeah, I think. Hold on, I'm not sure if you watched it. Yeah, I felt like there were 3 different points where I literally said like, bro, this is a weak version of the JQ. This isn't what you mean when you say JQ. Like I think because I brought it together at the end where I laid out like entirely.
I watched that. I watched. No, I did watch it. I didn't watch. I didn't watch the full thing cover to cover. I watched a lot of it.
Okay.
I did hear you make those. Like, everything you're telling me, like you're responding to me. No, I said this. Like I heard you say that, but it's not exactly what like.
Okay, sure, gotcha. Okay, I'll keep it in mind in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So that's the one thing is like, oh no, like it's not just like, oh, you're giving me a weak JQ. It's like you're giving me a weak JQ with respect to what I literally just wrote down about what you said before.
Okay.
That's one thing. And then the other thing is to point is like, okay, to whatever degree you're weakening the JQ, you're weakening the unique sabotage threat of the Jewish people to the United States interests. And that discrepancy is going to decrease. Another thing that you seem to get frustrated with, it, understandably, is that is when there was always like an answer for everything. So, for example, like they're strong when the Jewish people are also powerful and also strong, except when it suits the JQ interests to maintain the theory when they're not, right? So one thing to bring up to the audience, and there's going to be a way to do it that doesn't sound so esoteric, but just for the purposes of this conversation, I'll just say it. The thing to bring about there are theoretic virtues. There are certain things about a theory that increase its probability or decrease its probability. So things like, Occam's razor or simplicity is one thing that's attractive feature of a theory. Something like parsimony will be an attractive theory about a theory, but there are certain theoretic vices. One of them is auxiliary hypotheses, or ad hoc is another thing. So the point, and that's not to say that any ad hoc thing just automatically disqualifies a theory. Sometimes a very great theory can, have one falsification and be saved by an auxiliary explanatory hypothesis that's ad hoc. But if you have a theory that is time after time, having expected results that don't pop up or having predictions that are not turning up, and you keep having to add auxiliary hypothesis to auxiliary hypothesis in order to save the theory, it's important to hammer those things home. Say, okay, well, why your theory predicts, and it's important that this is why it's important to have them really outline what it is in the beginning of the debate, because what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to see that the theory that he has outlined in the beginning, you want to see if there's any derivable predictions and what is derivable from the theory and what needs an auxiliary hypothesis to save it. Because what he's going to want to try to do is he's going to want to try to say something like, oh no, the JQ that I've outlined, this thing that you think is not expected, it really is expected on the JQ. He's going to want to say something like that. So you want to take, well, look, I asked you to outline the JQ. Here's what I have. Derive this prediction from me. How is this thing predicted from it? Versus, are you just adding an auxiliary hypothesis to save your theory from being falsified? And every single time that happens, that's what you're going to go back to, and you're going to hold them against that. Say, okay, this was predicted. I don't see it. You're saying, oh, well, maybe the temperature wasn't right. That's why. Oh, well, maybe the time wasn't right. That's why. We did it with the temperature. We did it with the time. Still not seeing it. Oh, maybe the moon had to be so we did, et cetera, et cetera. So those are all auxiliary hypotheses, and the point is just to say every time you do this, you can do it to try to save your theory, but the overall credence of the theory decreases every single time you do that, because all the auxiliary hypotheses have their own probability of being true or false, and if you stack them on cumulatively, then the probability of all of them being true cumulatively goes down. So there's going to be a way to make that point in a way the audience will understand more. So there's certain probably analogies that you can make. I'm sure you can figure those out.
I'm trying to get at that when I'm asking why there's an exception for certain things, like why it isn't predicting accurately some things or another. Like, for instance, he said there was a memo written that directed the U.S. to go to the war in Iraq, although the timeline doesn't even add up on that. But then I asked, well, this memo also mentioned Syria and Iran. Why didn't we go there? And he's like, well, because we couldn't go to Iran or Syria, but we did go to Iraq. I think that's what I try to demonstrate there is that in some ways Jewish people are all powerful and are capable of certain things, but then at other points they seem to falter, and I don't know why if they are so powerful. Or there was one time when he brought up the Office's special plans for manufacturing reasons to go into Iraq. And I said, well, if the Jewish people are so powerful, and controlling the whole DOD, I guess, and faking all of this, why didn't they just go through the CIA? Why even create the Office's special plans? And then he's like, well, because they had very limited penetration into our intelligence agencies. They didn't have any penetration into our intel. But then in the next topic, he's saying that they control the entirety of our media apparatus. So I feel like that's the way to demonstrate, but in terms of explaining ad hoc auxiliary theories meant to augment an existing theory to make it more powerful, I think that's too much proper logic for an audience to follow.
No, and there's going to be a way to
I don't know if there is, because that's the short and sweet version of what you're saying is if you give a formula, every additional asterisk you have weakens the formula, right? If I say every single tall person is a criminal, asterisks except for when they're from this neighborhood, asterisks except for when they graduated this year, asterisks except for when they get on a sleep. At some point, when you've gotten so many qualifiers, it's no longer explanatory. But I understand the logic behind that. Clearly you do, but somebody here like Qorantos wouldn't understand that, right? So I would just look like a retard trying to sit here and explain why a theory might be weak when you've got to add more and more justifications for it. But the thing is, this is another debate thing that I have to be very careful of, is sometimes there are points where you might feel like you're making a logically strong point, but you're just inviting the opponent to strengthen their argument. So if I say something like this, so here's something I could say. Why is it that your theory here will explain why Jewish people control all of the media, but Jewish people don't control all of the intelligence agencies, right? That might be a question that on a logical level is oh, that's a good logical question. But in optics and in rhetorical skills, what it's going to let him do is if he's got any type of conspiracy about why Jewish people don't have good penetration into the intelligence agencies, he's going to ramble for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes and explain exactly why. And now I look like I'm in an even weaker position, even though technically what he said doesn't satisfy logically the argument. This is why I was shouting at Myron, please stop letting him ramble, make him answer a question with brevity, is because anytime you allow somebody like that to just talk and talk and talk, they'll explain the world to you. They're not scared of answering a question, they're just scared of answering a question directly, because they'll always spurg out and give you 50 million different new talking points.
Almost like some ancestors
nuance. You know what I mean? Some questions need nuance and need you to go into details when answering them.
So again, for an audience like Q doesn't know the difference between nuance and just rambling. So anytime somebody speaks more, and this is the argument I got into
audience and not the person. You're the only fucking common denominator.
This is the same argument I got to my friend with a few days ago. The Lauren girl, we argued about like optics in these debates, and she was saying like, no, I think the audience can see through when these are weak arguments, but they can't. I think to the audience, if somebody is speaking more, and at least what they're saying isn't on its face wrong, you always look stronger when you're just speaking and speaking and speaking.
So I hear you. The way to do this on a logical level, and again, like, so my approach, and I don't know if you take my approach or not. My approach is like the following. So they're like in terms of like the logic and optics. Like if I have to have logic, so optics is great when you're winning on logic. Like that's when it like has the synergistic effect. When you're beating someone else on logic, optics is amazing. Optics is when you're not clearly winning or losing can also be good. Optics when you're losing a point looks really bad. Like rhetoric, like trying to make rhetorical like moves when to the audience it looks like you're losing. Like
I think it really depends on the type of. I think it really depends on the type of argument you're having. There's an old adage for lawyers that applies perfectly to debate. And it's if you have the facts on your side, pound the facts. If you have the law on your side, pound the law. If you have neither the facts nor the law, pound the table. Depending on where you're at in a conversation and what you're talking about, you can absolutely. There was, I think I mentioned this on stream. Did you ever watch my debate with that lawyer guy on Just Pearly Things? About whether or not Andrew Tate was a sex trafficker?
I might have, but it's not ringing a bell.
There was it was a debate on it was a debate that I won because I did.
Ego, Keith.
It was a debate that I won, but I did it because the other guy didn't know how to structure his arguments properly. And I was able to argue because he wanted to follow me into some peripheral territory where he sounded dumber, like arguing that like Romania was racist against the Tates, or he wanted to move into peripheral stuff like YouTube videos and commentary that they had made in the past that I was very familiar with. But he wanted to focus initially on the three pieces of evidence that Romania was using to keep the Tates locked up, which honestly was really important. And I didn't have the full story on like the psychologist report. If he would have hammered home those three things over and over and over again, I probably would have looked really bad in the day. I would have lost because I wouldn't have been able to answer three of the really important points for why but because he didn't, and because he followed me into other areas, I think optically, I came out looking, I thought it was horrible. But then when I was like going through all of the feedback and the commentary and everything later, I realized people thought that I did really well. But the reason why I was so stuck in my own is like, holy shit, the whole debate, I'm thinking if he wants to hammer home on the psych report and these two other things, I'm going to get he didn't. He abandoned those positions immediately for some reason. But yeah, that's like an example where like I think me moving it up,
that's because he didn't hammer you on the facts. So then you didn't like technically lose because he didn't hammer it.
Yeah,
so
but it's because I was able to maneuver rhetorically and optically, even though on those facts I wasn't as strong.
Yes,
but that's
so I agree. So I agree. Yes, so I agree. You can get that is sophistry. Like I agree, you can get sophisted. Like I agree that someone can weasel. Like I agree that you can weasel someone out of beating you. I agree that you can weasel someone out of beating you logically, and then they're in a territory, you're in this new territory where they're not beating you logically, and then the rhetoric can do the work. I agree with that. Yeah.
I do agree with your point that like if somebody is really far behind and they're trying to like play games, I think that they can look bad. That just requires a specific type of handling. So for instance, my favorite way to make somebody fuck up on that is to repeat a question. If I say like, listen, here's the question, and when they start, when I say, I'm going to repeat the same question, that's a way to hold somebody to account. But the problem in that debate was that Zerka, Sneeko, and sometimes Myron was pulling the reins away from me when I was trying to hammer home a point like that, and then the flow of the conversation would change and I couldn't secure that concession from Fuentes, and we just move on to the next point where it looks like I haven't gained any ground at all.
Yeah. So I'm just going to go because we skipped over this one point.
Sorry,
so you made the point about, you made the point about how like, okay, you got to be careful when you ask like, oh, why does your theory predict this and not that? A better approach. So one approach you may consider is to, now that you know like some of these things, you could say like, okay, we're having you define the JQ. Just so we're clear, like here's what you're defining. So I would expect it's more likely than not on this theory to predict this, this, and this. So Jewish people would be more powerful in this area, and this area, and this area, and this area. Yes. And so he signs off on this, he signs off on that, and if he doesn't sign off on anything, it's you need to make clear, or at least it would be beneficial to make clear, that what you're doing here is you're not letting the theory stand on its own, and for these predictions you're adding other things to save it from being falsified, which is fine, but you're doing that over and over again.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm telling you, I understand what you're saying, and I know logically that that's true. I don't think most people know that what you're saying logically follows. Like, this is something that somebody would need a little bit of training or speaking on. Because if I tell somebody,
talk down on the audience, go ahead. By the way, this is what you keep. I swear to God, the entire time you claimed that I had an ego when I approached you, simply saying, you could admit that the dude was more knowledgeable, but you keep saying, listen, I could have won this argument, but the way that I was going to go about it was a way that most of the audience couldn't fucking grasp. Wait, I have a question for Avi. Let's put some of this coaching to practice.
Wait, before we do that,
I'm just super curious. No, you guys went back and forth. Half of the time it was words I couldn't comprehend.
But Avi, what in there for? Wait,
okay, hold on, no, wait.
I just have a question. Can I not ask him a question?
Ask it quick, go. Holy shit, ask.
Nah, let me ask. Holy shit. Okay, Avi. So if I were to ask you, why were Jews throughout history for thousands of years?
Wait, no, don't care. That's a whole other. I just
want to know, because he's providing you the feedback to your argument. How would he argue against this? Right? Like, I just want to know. Like, tell me.
I don't know if there's any one full-on answer to that. I imagine there's various different factors, and I'm not exactly sure which ones are contributive in their various weights. I'd have to look into that and form I'd have to do a deep dive on that in order to provide you with.
It feels like the super general answer that I've got, but I don't have this 100%, and I'm sure Q is going to jerk off and come all over his face if he realizes that this answer is wrong, or if there's something different I stumble into later. But it seems like right now that in very early history, Jewish people were pushed into a lot of types of jobs that traditional people didn't want. So essentially in Rome, people were like, yeah, we don't loan money. That's like a dirty job, you go do that shit. And Jewish people started doing those types of jobs and I think there were a lot of religious restrictions in a lot of different societies around like loaning with interest. I don't believe Christians are allowed to do it. Maybe. I'm almost positive that Muslims are not allowed to do it. And so that left these types of like financial services were largely open for Jewish people to explore. And because they did that and they started to build a lot of explore. So because a lot of these financial services were basically relegated to Jewish people, and because they were kicked out of or not allowed to work in a lot of other areas, they started to explore those types of things a lot. So they made a lot of money doing that. They also, as a result of probably working in like numbers, everything, they have like a general culture that has a very, very, very high regard for education. Culturally, Jewish people feel very strongly about being intelligent, being educated, and that when you combine this and then the fact that that kind of like spreads and becomes synonymous with their religion and all the other countries they go to, it creates like a perfect like environment for Jewish people to thrive, at least financially, and then from financially, socially in a lot of the countries they go to. But for obvious reasons, that built a whole bunch of resentment from other populations where Jewish people are in those countries. That's like a broad, very, very, very broad take, but I think that is like one factor that plays a lot into it.
Yeah, it's a mechanistic explanation. It's probably a partial explanation that probably, I suspect, may not account for the entirety of what's happened. It may account for a substantial amount. I'm not exactly sure to what degree. Look, there's a lot of factors about. Look, Jewish people are insular also. Like they're insular by religion in many cases. Like if you look at especially the really religious ones, I mean, that in and of itself also can breed animosity. So like there's like a whole bunch of different explanations that probably play a certain role to various different degrees, and how much each one does, I'm not exactly sure. That I would have to. That's a whole different can of worms. Like that's a whole like field of study in and of itself. But anyway, now that question.
So anyway, going all the way back, there are certain things that I agree are like I said, I was complaining about this before. Obviously, Q calls it a cope, but there are certain things that are just like logical pitfalls where it's like if you know this logically, this is true. Like if you've got a theory and you have to constantly add addendums or more qualifiers to it, it's a very weak theory. But like I don't think an audience intuitively understands that, so it's just not a good point for me to harp on. I've got to find a better way to explain.
Yeah, I think it would be worth it then instead of what I think would be very important is to not abandon making that point, but rather to really finding a way of making that point so it's quick, snappy, lands with the audience. Because what I don't want you, what I really, really if I could please implore you not to do, is to start abandoning logic out of being afraid of making like.
Well, no. It's not about abandoning logic. It's just I have to find, because keep in mind that like Nick first and foremost is like a politician, right? That's his job. That's his trade. His whole point is to be able to capture an audience and speak to them in an inspirational way that draws them to his side, right? That is the master that he serves, and that master sits above logic, above fact, above history, above anything else. So I have to, when I'm fighting, I've got to fight on those grounds. So there are some points where like a logical argument might be a quote unquote logical argument, but that doesn't mean it's going to be the most rhetorically effective one. And anything that requires me to start like busting out like prop logic, or to get into like these sophisticated, like, well, here's like the honorific parts of like good theories, or the virtue of good theories. Like, it's kind of like, that's why like in a debate, like I'll never use like, that was an appeal to ad hominem fallacy, that was an appeal to fallacious authority, that was like a non sequitur. Like I generally just don't say these things, because
you just, I hate it when you do that characterization, because this is like not how the debate bros do things at all.
Like people like, oh, excuse me, this is exactly how you guys do it. I've listened to you guys do it, motherfucker. But I'm just saying that for the audience, as soon as you start,
like that,
sure, but I'm just saying that to an audience, whenever you start busting out like formal logic, it just sounds weird and geeky and loser. That's how I hear it.
I'm not suggesting you necessarily do that. If I ever bring, so I get it. Like if I'm bringing you like something in a more formal sense, what I'm anticipating is, because I don't want you to falter on the logical point, but I understand your desire to make it appealing to the audience and make it so the audience understands why this other person is failing. I think the work to be done there is to say, okay, well, how do I make the content that's in this point, how do I make that land in a debate to the audience? Because I don't want to not make that point. If someone really is presenting a theory and adding addendum to addendum and auxiliary hypothesis to auxiliary hypothesis, and because then it just seems like he has an answer for everything and the audience loves that.
I understand. Listen, if you do it at some point, link me and show me, but I don't think I can make that point succinctly. It's going to sound like I'm like flailing around in like logic land while he's just landing, fact after fact after fact. And I'm like, like swimming through philosophy oceans. Like I think that's what it's gonna be like. But if you find a way that you can make it in a compelling manner,
I think I could do it too. But like, I think,
yeah, try it and show me, and I'll watch the video. Like, oh, you know what? This actually worked really well.
Yeah, I mean, that point specifically, look, what's the problem with just saying like, oh, you seem to have an answer for everything. What's the probability? You think the probability of all those answers for everything is 100%, or so, like every time you're adding one of these, every time you're adding one of these answers, you just so happen to have a just so sorry for everything. Think about what your theory is standing on. Each one of
but even what you just said, I don't think I would ever try to explain a just so story to the audience. That's like, it's really, really, really convoluted and complicated. And just so story sounds super compelling. I think people. Oh, sorry, God.
You don't have to say just so story. The words just so story. You can say just, okay, everything, all of those answers you have. So your theory is standing on all the answers you have for all of these different objections. And if even one of them falls, you think the probability of all of them being right is 100%? If one of them falls, your whole theory topples. What does that say about your theory?
I think he would just say, yeah, but not all of them are going to stand, and we can talk about anything.
The point of how do you know all of them are going to stand? If you don't think all of them are 100% probable? If not, because the whole point here is that, look, basic math, okay? Basic math. If it's not 100% probable, then you have to multiply the probabilities, and it goes down and down and down, buddy. And that's not too far out. That's not too far out for an audience to understand.
Maybe.
And this is just me, like, coming off with this on the fly. If you really thought about this, you can come up with an optical way.
I do think about this, but I normally abandon. I'm not usually trying to win on like the logic argument grounds at all. I'm usually looking for fact grounds are good, and then like snappy analogies are good, and then like trying to counterpoints with like very obvious exceptions, I think would be good. Yeah, so like something I didn't know before that would have been really powerful. I totally forgot the story, but there was literally I think when they asked the question of like, do other people get canceled as hard as like Jews do? First of all, I was correct on that Mel Gibson thing, and I should have leaned harder into it, but that stupid panel with Zircon Stinko made me doubt myself. I don't know. Mel Gibson got a little bit of heat for the Jew shit, but I'm 99% sure the thing that he got fucked on was because he's talked about his wife having sex with or looking at a pack of N-words. That was the thing that tanked the fuck out of him. But these guys were all acting like it was some Jewish shit, which he got some heat for, like Passion of the Christ and some other Jewish comments he made, I think, but the pack of N-words is what fucking sank him. And apparently there was Kramer would have been a really good example. Apparently there was I don't remember who it was, but there was an owner of a basketball team who was literally a Jewish billionaire who got like fucking completely forced to sell his team, can't come back to the league ever again, because he was making Edward comments as well. And this guy was like apparently literally, Donald Sterling was literally a Jewish billionaire. This is like the best of all the Jews, like got f***ed on some racist shit. So like
the NBA is China owned, it's not Jewish.
Good one, dude. Having like two snappy examples like that would be, nothing is China owned in the JQ world. Everything is Jewish owned, including China. Having like a snappy boom like that, I think would be really good. But it's just a matter
Anybody
of like,
ever seen a Chinese Jewish dude, by the way? Just curious. Somebody
keep in mind that Nick Fuentes, during the debate, he said that the Soviets and the Americans all came together to fake the Holocaust. So yeah, China's probably compromised too, if you believe that. All right, he literally.
Listen, all I'm gonna say is Nick is a bit extra with his Holocaust denialism. You know what I mean? You could question the numbers, okay, but like it did happen. You know what I mean? That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. If you want my actual,
you can come up with snappy analogies to make the. Here's the thing. Like if the logic of the debate hinges on a point, I think you can make these snappy analogies. You can deliver it rhetorically effectively, and it would really suck to see you abandon the logical point because you're afraid that it's not going to come off rhetorically effective. Because I've been doing a lot of debates. I've been seeing how things pan out. I could be wrong, but it seems like when you put yourself in a position where you're giving ground logically, you're putting yourself in a position to also lose rhetorically. And you might not necessarily lose rhetorically, but you're giving more avenues to lose rhetorically when you cede the logical points. There's got to be a way to hold on to the logical points while maintaining the rhetoric that you're trying to maintain. I know there is. Like, it's not like I wouldn't just shrug that off.
Okay, I'll keep it in mind. Okay.
Yeah. All right, and then the other things are. Let me ask you this: like, why couldn't you? Because you have a good rhetorical move that I actually have adopted your words for. By the way, like the words. Just so you know, when you're done with this, I'm going to re-ask you the same question. It's like that is a very good succinct.
Yeah, I was trying to do that on the Gulf War shit, and I couldn't because eventually Zerka pulled the reins away, and Myron wouldn't let me like reinforce. Like he was letting Nick ramble, even though I begged him like 5 times last time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of what I would have done in the situation there. Like, I would have said the same thing as Zerka. Like, Zerka, like just so you know, Zerka, when you're done rambling, I'm gonna re-ask him the same question.
Yeah, but at some point,
that's the first thing I agree with.
Good for you, dude. Yeah, I think I can do that really good in a one-on-one debate or in a more structured debate. But in that debate, I think that going back at a certain point, it's gonna make me look weak. I think especially because I think it was getting to the point where Myron was telling me to stop interrupting, and Myron was telling us we had to move on. So if I start fighting with the moderator on top of everybody else, it's like I don't think I'll never put myself. The thing was I knew this was going to happen in advance, and I shouldn't have allowed it because I told Myron as soon as Zerka said he was flying to Miami, I told Myron, I was like, I'm not going to do a JQ debate with Fuentes with Zerka there. This is retarded. And then Myron told me, he's like, don't worry, like I'll tell Zerka to calm down. I should have just said like, I'm sorry, I can't, I'm not interested. I won't do that again. Having like a screaming retard in the background like that, there was no point. I'd rather do a 2v1 like where both people are legit debaters than have somebody like Zerka in the background like that. Like it's just so horrible for me.
Yeah. No, that I do.
Realization.
No. Look. He has a point. It was. I mean, but to be fair, Destiny, you did end up agreeing to a 4v1 all things JQ with like the crazy on the planet. Like so. Yeah. No. That's. No, but
he knew what he was getting into. Is what you're trying to say.
I understand, and under normal conditions, yeah, I definitely wouldn't have enjoyed doing that. But the alternative was just the three of them on that panel talking about the JQ. Like, is that better?
That might have been better actually.
Oh shit!
Yeah, because then like
keep shitting on him. Go.
No, because like no, that might have been better because then at least like people would say like, okay, well, you know. Yeah, these three people are just circle jerking each other, whatever.
I disagree. Red pill communities are ultra primed for JQ shit.
Yeah, they would have loved that shit.
And they could have covered so many more topics. If I wasn't there, like arguing, they could have gone over how fake the vaccine shit was. They could have gone over that COVID came from Chinese people. They could have gone over so many more topics and blamed Jews for everything if it wasn't an actual debate. And they would have made so much ground. They would have covered so much ground, I think.
Wait. COVID did originate in China, so it did come from Chinese people. Why is that a conspiracy theory? What the fuck?
Maybe they would have, but you have to pair that up against the harm of like having someone representing the other side and not doing nearly as well as they wanted to do, because that also has its own can of worms of harms.
Yeah, but that audience, sure, I understand what you're saying. I totally disagree. That audience is already like hard bought into JQ shit. Like they're also like super primed for it. And what?
It's not about them. It's not about them. It's about the people in the fence. It's about like the people
who are like
I'm
talking about. I'm saying that audience. That's the audience that this is in front of. It's not like we were going to like a neutral third party platform to debate or whatever. There's an audience that they've been doing JQ shit for like I think 2 months now or something. Ever since Sneeko started to bring Fuentes and Dawson onto these platforms.
Well, wait. I get it that there's a primary audience that they have, and you're probably not going to convince them either way, even if you are there and you're winning. But the problem with either losing or not having a clear victory in a situation like that isn't that you've failed, isn't that you've converted them more. It's that the reach, their audience has a larger reach in which you've failed to win, including your audience of that goes beyond Red Pill, that it's going to be shared with, because like it's going to get more heat because you're there. It's going to get more traction, especially if it's not clear that you won, or if it's like, oh, Destiny might be losing here. Now it's going to get a lot more eyes. Those sort of things. Those sort of
yeah, I mean, like, I understand. Like, I guess there's something to weigh there, but I would always go for, like, 50-50 shot at winning a debate versus just, like, 3 guys are going to go talk about the JQ for hours and hours and hours with no pushback whatsoever. But, I mean, I understand what you're saying, sure.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing... Well, what else was there? Yeah, so so that's fine. I mean, you
Wait, there's another thing, Avi. Holy shit, you're impressive. Keep going. Wait, whoever titled the stream "Boring Stream," don't do this to Avi, you f***ing head. Go ahead.
All right. Areas JQ encompasses. I know you studied a lot for the Holocaust part of it, and that's fine. The arguments for the JQ come up in a lot of different areas. It's not just like geopolitical history. It's not just like, Gulf War. It's not just the Holocaust. Even things like Jewish theology. And I think this this did happen in the debate. Arguments for the JQ arise just from things about like the Talmud, for example. And that's another thing. Like, so that might be something to just quickly review over because there's a lot of nonsense that was said about it. I did a whole thread responding to it. Now listen, there's up shit in every religious text. I'm not going to deny that. But the specific things that Fuentes was saying that was in the Talmud, that was just a whole bunch of things were either misquotes, things that were not even in the Talmud, things that were attributed to the Talmud that were written like 500 plus years later than the Talmud was even compiled. Like he was just making some like ridiculous shit up. Being able to call him on that would have been nice as well.
I'll learn Judaism.
Yeah.
Right,
no, I'm not
about to say.
No, it's Destiny. Stop. Come on. Like I'm not saying you should learn Judaism and Jewish style. Like, I'm saying like there are certain specific arguments that come. Just like you're not going to learn all of history, but you know that there are certain specific JQ arguments that come from portions of history that you're doing a lot of work to look at. It's the same thing here. Like if there are certain specific arguments that are being brought in favor of the JQ from very specific small parts of Judaism, like learn about just those parts and if they're right or wrong. And you know what the talking points, you know what they say over and over again.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Is the upcoming debate going to be 1v1?
No, I think it's 2v2.
Okay.
He's bringing you along, Avi. It's you and him versus whoever he's bringing.
It's me and Michael Sartain against Fuentes and someone else, I think. I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, if you want any like more like thorough prep or whatever, I'm happy to help at any point in time. Because I'm familiar with like I've done like including things like all things Holocaust. I've done like a meta-analysis on the cyanide concentrations in the gas chambers versus the neither nors. I'd love to walk you through that and present and give you that evidence to pull out in the debate. That's something that's not been actually published yet. Well, it is technically published, but not like in an academic journal just yet. But it's still like all the data is traceable. So it would be nice for you to have that. It would be nice, and just the various documents. But anyway, I guess if I could just stress one thing, like I think that stick to the things you really do well. Like just really have him outline his tweet. What? Okay, Qorantos, just give me a sec.
No, go ahead. I give you multiple seconds. It's just like the Jewish handlers. Lauren came at him after the shit. You're coming. This is big, bro. When the Jewish community is coming after you, little Steve, you can't say it's me and the low IQ people because they're Jews, so their IQ is way higher than me. And if they're telling you
literally
you did bad,
no idea what the you're talking about. But go ahead. Sorry,
why are you so fucking bad? Holy shit! Light it up.
He was like a good he was a good 95 IQ reality check, so it's good to keep informed of what the common people are thinking. Sorry, go ahead. What were you saying?
Yeah,
this is actually crazy.
Stick to the things you do well. So you do, good job. Have them outline what it is, but you're doing that for a purpose. Keep in mind, like every time, just think back about like, okay, what have you outlined, and just hold his feet to the fire. Like, okay, this theory does not predict this. You are adding an auxiliary about this. Oh, this theory does predict what. Why don't we observe it? Oh, you were saying this. This is not what you said originally. I have it written down. Forced linearity. I know you couldn't do that in this debate because like moderator and whatever. That's fine. You tried. Force, and it's different than being aggressive. Like you don't have like being aggressive and forcing linearity, two different things. I'm sure you know that, but like yes, like I love the thing where like, okay, this is the question. Until I get an answer, I'm just gonna keep re-asking it. I won't encourage bad behavior. You're not gonna get it. Keep re-asking the same question until you actually have some engagement with your question. Definitely find. Please do not abandon. Do not start giving up logical points because you're afraid of.
I'm not giving up logical points. I'm just not like.
Yeah, you're not. No, no, it is like if
it's
you.
Not
if
giving
you
up logical point, not to point out like a potential logical issue with a person's.
Yes, if you have if there is a logical flaw in a person's position and you don't point that out, you're giving up the point. Like if there's something that defeats someone else's position logically and you've just completely jettisoned that argument, you're giving up the logical point because you're afraid of how it will look optically. Don't do that. Like find a way to looking at it optically. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents. Yeah, and I'm happy to do a deep dive in like the empirics of like Holocaust or all things JQ whenever.
All right.
I
love you. Later. Be careful.
All right, bye.
That was a nice guy. What is his day job? Is he like a politician?
No, he's a physician.
Like
doctor.
the general doctor stuff? Like he just gives you cough medicine? Oh, nice. Holy shit. Wait.
Well, in the United States, any doctor, even a doctor that just gives you cough medicine, goes to medical school. They receive like full medical training.
I mean, they consider a dentist a doctor. Is he really a doctor?
No.
You know what I mean?
In the United States,
there's a lot of people that get away with it.
No.
Wait, in the United States, they're not a doctor?
In the United States, a dentist does not go to medical school to receive full medical training. But he's a God damn it, what is the thing? Dermatologist. He's a skin doctor. But a doctor, like even a general practitioner, a GP, goes to medical school to get full medical school training. Dentists do not go to medical school.
Okay.
A dental surgeon, an oral surgeon, not an orthodontist. I believe an oral surgeon will go to medical school. Like people that do surgery will go to medical school.
Okay, interesting. I actually didn't know that. Okay, so when will we be expecting, assuming that he agrees eventually to fucking debate you, when can we expect a round 2 from you and Nick? I assume he's not going to be on Fresh and Fit again because you realized, okay, you bit off too much shit that you couldn't chew on. So is it going to be on your fucking platform? Is it going to be on
You should do debates. I would love to see you do them for me.
What debate? Holy. Wait.
It's just everything you say is like, it's like reeks of like low self-esteem. Like the way that you drive all of your questions has to do through this like lens of like, how good are you? How strong are you? Did you bite off more than you could chew? Like all of everything you say, like it's just like dripping. It's just very funny to me.
Can I say, okay. Let me say
it's supposed to be, I think Sosnick is doing one in, I think a couple weeks. But supposedly, I saw someone on Twitter said that Fuentes was trying to kick me. So I don't know if it'll happen then. I'm not sure.
Okay. God willing, it's gonna happen. And if he does kick you, please somebody fucking leak the screenshots, okay? So we can give, you know what I mean, Destiny here. You know what I mean? I said Destiny, guys. The fucking win. But here's the thing, though. First of all, please, for the love of God, just stop projecting onto me because it's not ego. To me, I'm just thinking, you know what? I don't think you know how much your fucking reputation, what's the word, precedes you or something. A lot of people look at you as the end game boss of debates. So if I'm treating you as the fucking endgame boss and you're like, no, it was unfair because, you know, there's a fucking retard yelling over me and derailing me and all that stuff, I'm just sitting here expecting you to be able to fucking maneuver that shit. That's literally it.
Sure,
And you took
and I
offense to
understand.
that.
So one of the ways that successful people are successful, or successful people move, it's not because they can handle every single situation. It's because usually successful people are really smart about choosing their battles. That's probably one of the most important things you can do is to set yourself up for success in life, rather than thinking that you can handle or deal with everything. And that's part of, like, for instance, the reason why my debate against Rollo and Sartain, I believe, went so well, wasn't because I was like the master debater, blah, blah, blah. I'm good at that. It's because I laid out very clear ground rules at the beginning of that conversation. I think that was an incredibly important thing to do for that debate. So setting yourself up for success. It's not you being able to maneuver through any situation. It's choosing the situations you try to maneuver through.
Sure. And by the way, this is consistent with what you've said like fucking couple of months ago. What happened now? Did you pick the wrong battle?
I think I could have set myself up better, but I don't know if it would have been better to just let the three of them ramble on with no pushback.